They said there'd been a booking mix-up. One bed, one stranger. But the moment his leg brushed mine under the covers, we stopped pretending to sleep. Before I continue with the rest of the story, kindly do me a little favor. Please hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to comment your favorite part of the story below. I love reading your thoughts and reactions. They truly keep me going. Now, allow me to take a moment to appreciate my rainbow lovers. Yes, you. Thank you for making us a 26-strong community. Each one of you is a pillar of strength, color, and courage. This journey wouldn't be possible without your love, your voice, and your presence. You are making the queer community proud, and I see every one of you. Your support is not just a number, it's a movement. It's light in the dark. It's love, loud and unashamed. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for standing with me. Thank you for being you. Now, tell me where you are watching from in the comments. And also, Rainbow Lover, have you ever shared a bed that didn't stay innocent? Let's talk about it. I arrived at the resort much later than planned. Sticky with sweat, sand in places I didn't even know could trap sand, and half a headache from the cab ride that smelled like coconuts and bad decisions. I had imagined this differently. A warm welcome, a solo suite, a long soak in the tub, and maybe, if I was feeling brave, a cocktail at the bar before crashing into a king-size bed alone. What I didn't imagine was him. He was already at the front desk when I dragged my suitcase in, half fuming, half exhausted, clutching my phone like a lifeline. His back was to me at first, broad shoulders beneath a crisp white t-shirt that hung just right, like it knew it had no business looking that good on someone. He turned slightly when I stepped forward, and that's when I saw him. Tan, tall, with dark curls that looked carelessly expensive and lips that curved up on one side, like he was on a joke no one else knew. And me? I was too sweaty to care. The receptionist glanced between us nervously, her smile faltering as she stared down at the screen. Then came the words that knocked every ounce of fatigue out of my body. "We're terribly sorry there's been a booking error." I blinked. What kind of error? The woman winced. "It appears we've accidentally double-booked room 207. It's the only available suite left at the moment. Just for tonight. We'll fix it by morning, I promise." "One room," I asked slowly. Her nod was so apologetic, it almost made me feel bad for being irritated. "One bed," I added, just in case I was hearing it wrong. This time, she looked at her screen like maybe she could will it to change. And that's when he turned fully to me. One bed, one room, one stranger. And him, standing just close enough for me to catch the scent of something warm and clean, like cedar and citrus. He arched a brow, that smirk deepening. "Looks like we're roommates." I stared at him for a full beat. "You're joking, right?" He chuckled, easy and low, then extended a hand. "Aiden." I looked at the hand like it was dangerous, which, frankly, it was, but I shook it anyway. His grip was firm, warm, confident. "I'm not great at sharing," I muttered. "I don't snore," he said. "Much." I exhaled slowly, turning to the receptionist. "There's really nothing else?" "Not tonight, ma'am. There's a wedding party, and we're fully booked. But we'll compensate you both with a free breakfast and spa voucher for the inconvenience." Aiden gave a low whistle. They had me at breakfast. I tried not to roll my eyes. Eventually, after a long pause and a short internal war, I nodded. "Fine, but I want the side closest to the bathroom." "Done," he said, and I called dibs on the extra pillow. My lips twitched. I hated how easily he made this awkward situation feel almost bearable. We walked to the room in silence, the tension not exactly hostile, but thick enough to slice. When the door opened with a low click and I stepped inside, reality hit me square in the face. One bed, big, fluffy, offensively inviting. A single chocolate on the pillow, like it was taunting me. Aiden set his bag down with a thud, then looked over at me. "Well," he said, leaning against the dresser like he lived there, "what's your policy on accidental spooning?" I didn't answer. I just walked into the bathroom, shut the door behind me, and exhaled into my hands. This was going to be a very long night. There are few things more painfully intimate than undressing in the same room as a stranger, especially when you're both pretending it's no big deal. He changed in the bathroom. I changed in the corner, half shielded by the wardrobe door, tugging my oversized sleep shirt down to my thighs and trying not to overthink the shape of my silhouette in the mirror. When he came out, barefoot and wearing nothing but a pair of gray joggers, I looked everywhere but there. "Coast is clear," he said, ruffling his damp curls with a towel. I nodded stiffly. "Thanks." Then we stared at the bed. One bed. Still just the one. The same one I had hoped would magically split down the middle or duplicate itself like a miracle of modern resort engineering. Instead, it mocked us. Immaculate white sheets and two fluffy pillows perched like twin sentries at the headboard. He grabbed one of the pillows and dropped it between us like a peace offering. "The Great Wall," he said lightly. I arched a brow. "To prevent nighttime invasions?" "Exactly." His mouth quirked. "I promise to stay on my side, General." "Good," I said, even though my throat was suddenly dry. We turned off the lights, and for a while, the room was quiet, except for the lazy churn of the ceiling fan and the occasional creak of the mattress, as we both tried to get comfortable without making it weird. I lay stiff as a board, staring up at the ceiling and willing my body to forget that there was a half-naked stranger less than 2 feet away, breathing softly in the dark. But the air conditioning was a joke. By midnight, the sheets felt like they were made of steam. I shifted, turning over for the 100th time, tugging my shirt away from my skin. I could hear him doing the same, muttering something under his breath about tropical heat and ridiculous climate. Eventually, I kicked off the covers altogether, lying back with one arm above my head, hoping the ceiling fan would do something. That's when it happened. His arm brushed mine lightly but unmistakably, skin on skin. Warm, smooth, a whispered touch that should have meant nothing. I flinched like it meant everything. He didn't move. He didn't apologize. The silence shifted. It wasn't awkward. It was charged, like the air just changed shape. I didn't look at him. I couldn't. Instead, I kept my eyes fixed on the ceiling, listening to the low roar of the ocean beyond the balcony. Each wave crashed in sync with the pulse hammering in my ears. I tried to count them. The waves. The beats. 1, 2, 3. But my body was hyper-aware of the heat of the sheets, of the fact that I wasn't alone, that there was a man beside me whose presence made the bed feel impossibly small. I could feel his breath now, slow and steady, just behind me. Not touching, but close enough that the space between us buzzed. I pulled the sheet back over me, not because I was cold, but because I needed something between us. A barrier, a distraction. He shifted slightly, and his leg brushed mine. Bare. Intentionally or not, I couldn't tell. But he didn't move away. Neither did I. I closed my eyes, and that was the moment the pretending stopped. Quietly, without words. Nothing happened. Not really. But everything had already started. There's a specific kind of dread that comes from waking up next to someone you barely know, wrapped in shared heat, pretending it never happened. I woke to birdsong and the distant hush of waves. The room was drenched in soft gold light, filtering to the gauzy white curtains like it had something to hide. My sleep shirt had ridden up slightly, and the sheet was tangled around my legs like a half-forgotten secret. Aiden was already up. I blinked blearily and turned to see him by the tiny counter in the corner of the room, barefoot and shirtless, wrestling with the resort's coffee machine, like it had personally offended him. The scent hit first, bitter, rich, and grounding. Then his voice, warm and casual. "Hope you take it black." It's all I could convince this little devil to produce. I sat up slowly, self-conscious, as the sheet slipped off one shoulder. "Black's fine," I said, even though I usually preferred something with vanilla and an irresponsible amount of sugar. He turned, 2 steaming cups in hand, and walked over like it was the most natural thing in the world, like we hadn't just shared a night, so close it had redrawn the map of my personal space. He handed me a cup, fingers brushing mine, and smiled. Not too wide, just enough. Morning, roommate. God. Even his voice had a sleepy rasp that made my insides ache a little. I wrapped both hands around the mug and sipped. Too hot, slightly burnt, but I didn't complain. We sat on the edge of the bed like a scene from a movie that hadn't decided its genre yet. Legs dangling, not touching, but almost. You didn't snore, I said eventually. See? I told you, he replied, nudging me lightly with his elbow. Though you do talk in your sleep. His brow arched. Do I? I nodded, enjoying the way his grin tilted with mischief. Mumbled something about a broken kayak and mango salsa. Sounds like me, he said with mock seriousness. Very intense dreams. I laughed, and something shifted in the air again. Lighter this time. Less charged, but still buzzing, like static clinging to a silk dress. Our conversation moved in lazy circles. Travel, bad flight experiences, favorite books. Nothing profound. Nothing particularly memorable on its own. But somehow, every word felt important. Like we were building something small and invisible between us, one sentence at a time. And his eyes, they lingered. They wandered my face, my mouth, then flick away when I caught them. But he didn't look embarrassed. If anything, it felt deliberate, like he was letting me see him looking. An invitation I hadn't decided whether to accept. I surprised myself by not wanting to look away. Can I ask you something? He said, voice softer now. I nodded. Last night, did you sleep at all? I hesitated. Barely. Same. He turned his mug in his hands. Felt like I might accidentally breathe wrong and wake you. I smiled faintly. You didn't. You were considerate. There was a silence then, not uncomfortable, but thick with all the things we weren't saying. I kept thinking, he said slowly, how strange it is sharing a bed with someone you don't know, and how somehow it felt easy with you. My breath caught. I didn't reply. Just sipped my coffee, hoping it would hide the blush I felt blooming at the base of my neck. He leaned slightly closer, not touching, but enough that I could feel the warmth of his skin and smell the faint scent of him, coffee, salt, and something undeniably male. I don't normally do this, he murmured. Sleep with strangers? Wake up wanting to stay. My heart gave a dangerous thud. I met his eyes then, fully and without flinching. They weren't just blue. They were stormy. Depths I hadn't prepared myself for. We sat there in that pause, our cups forgotten, the distance between us shrinking in slow, invisible degrees. I didn't know what came next, but for the first time in a long time, I wanted to find out. Then, it started with a simple question. Want to take a walk? He asked, his voice low, casual, like it hadn't been looping through my head since morning. The sun was still stretching across the sky, warm and forgiving, and the ocean's voice had grown more insistent, calling us like it knew we needed an excuse. I nodded, surprising myself again with how easy it was to say yes to him. We left our shoes behind, kicked them off by the edge of the path, like a promise to keep things simple. The sand was soft, cool in the shadows, warm where the light still kissed it. The beach stretched wide and quiet, private enough to feel like a secret. For a while, we just walked. No small talk. No need to fill the air with words. The waves did that for us, curling and collapsing in soft rhythm, retreating and returning like they knew something we didn't. His hand brushed mine once, just a light graze. And then, instead of pulling away, he let it linger. Our fingers bumped again, slid, then, slowly, almost shyly, they laced together like they belonged that way. He didn't look at me when he did it. He didn't need to. We walked like that. Bare feet, tangled hands, two shadows stretching long across the sand. Somewhere between a tide pool and a driftwood log, we started to talk. Really talk. He told me about his last failed relationship, a woman who wanted a life he couldn't give. I told him about how I used to plan everything down to the minute, until life laughed in my face and taught me the beauty of chaos. He laughed at that, said it sounded like something a romantic would say. I shrugged. Maybe I am. Maybe that's what I like about you. The words came so easily from his mouth, like we weren't strangers, like the past 24 hours had rewritten whatever we were supposed to be. By sunset, the sky was a bleeding canvas of color. Corals and golds dripping into the sea. He found a flat rock, pulled me down beside him, and we sat in silence, watching the last of the light vanish behind the horizon. It should have felt awkward, or cliché, or too much, but instead I felt weightless, unburdened, like I'd stumbled into a different version of myself, one who said yes without flinching. He turned to me just as the sun disappeared. You always as quiet, only when I don't want to ruin something. His brow lifted slightly, like he was trying to read between the lines. Then don't, he said softly, and with that, he stood, offered his hand again, and we walked back, closer this time, the silence between us less about hesitation, more about understanding. That night, when we climbed into bed, there was no line of pillows, no joke, no great wall. We didn't face away from each other. He lay on his side, propped on one elbow, watching me with those stormy eyes like he was memorizing something he didn't want to forget. I turned toward him, close enough to feel his breath against my cheek. We didn't touch. Not yet, but the space between us had vanished, and the promise of what came next thrummed louder than any wave outside. Then the rain arrived without warning. Sheets of it, slashing sideways against the resort windows, rattling the glass like it wanted in. I was standing by the small vanity, brushing through damp hair, when the power flickered once, twice, then gave up completely. Silence fell, heavy and sudden, except for the storm raging outside. Aiden appeared from the bathroom doorway, towel slung around his shoulders, hair dripping. Romantic, he said, smirking slightly. Resort goes full gothic. I laughed, nerve bubbling beneath the sound. You think they charge extra for ambience? He disappeared into wardrobe and emerged with a stubby white candle and a box of matches. Rescue mission, he declared, and lit it with a soft flick. The flame flared, then settled, casting warm gold shadows across his face. He placed the candle on the nightstand and sat down on the bed, patting the space beside him. Come on, we might as well swap ghost stories. I hesitated, ridiculously, but then joined him, folding my legs beneath me. The bed creaked under our weight, and the candlelight made everything softer, dreamlike, a little surreal. Outside, thunder rolled low like it was clearing its throat. Inside, everything was still. We sat close, closer than necessary. Our shoulders brushed. His knee grazed mine. The flickering light danced across the contours of his face, catching his eyes like reflections on deep water. We whispered, though we didn't need to. There was something about the darkness that made our voices hush, like we didn't want to disturb the delicate thing growing between us. I told him about the time I tried to swim out too far as a kid and had to be rescued by a lifeguard with a handlebar mustache. He told me about crashing his dad's car into a mailbox on prom night, and how he still sends the homeowner a Christmas card every year out of guilt. Each story drew us in tighter, each laugh a little more breathless. Somewhere between memory and silence, the storm surged louder. Lightning ripped across the sky, lighting the room for a heartbeat. And that's when it happened. I flinched, not dramatically, just enough to show I'd felt it. And without asking, he reached for me. It wasn't bold. It wasn't even really a move. It was instinct, his arm around my shoulders, pulling me in with a kind of calm assurance, like we'd done this 1,000 times. I let my head rest against his chest. His skin was warm. His breath, even warmer where it brushed the crown of my hair. One hand curled loosely around my upper arm, fingertips barely moving, like he was tracing the shape of my comfort. We sat like that, candlelit, storm-wrapped, hearts beating just fast enough to know this was no accident. It wasn't passion. Not yet. It was safety. It was closeness without need. It was the way his thumb grazed the soft part of my shoulder, once, twice, slow and unhurried. It was how I angled my face ever so slightly toward his neck and felt the tremble of a breath catch in his throat. "Still scared of storms?" he whispered. "Not right now." He pulled me in tighter, and I let him. The thunder cracked again, but this time I didn't flinch. No one said anything about what almost happened during the storm. Not over breakfast. Not during the lazy, humid afternoon that followed. But the air between us thickened, dense with unspoken things. Our words became lighter, while our silences grew heavier, weighted with questions neither of us dared voice. He watched me as I got dressed that morning. I felt his eyes follow my buttons, the slow way I combed my hair. He didn't look away quickly enough, but I didn't mind. I watched him, too, pretending not to notice the way his jaw tensed when I brushed past him to grab my sandals, how he adjusted his shirt like he needed something to do with his hands. The resort felt warmer that day. Or maybe it was just us. We found ourselves by the pool, pretending to be normal guests. He ordered something cold and citrusy. I stretched out on a lounger beside him, sunglasses hiding eyes that couldn't stop drifting toward his bare chest, his fingers drumming lightly on the armrest between us. It was almost funny how careful we were being with everything except our bodies. He swam first, inviting me in with a lazy wave. I hesitated, but the heat won. The water was cooler than I expected, sharp at first, then soothing. We swam in parallel lines, never colliding, but always aware. And when I finally reached the edge, breathless, he was there, offering his hand. I should have taken it casually. I meant to, but his palm found my waist instead, guiding me up with the gentlest pressure. A single touch, a single second, and yet I could feel it still. Long after I surfaced, long after we toweled off and returned to our room like nothing had shifted. That night, we climbed into bed in silence. No pillows between us. No need for pretense. Our backs touched, bare skin to bare skin beneath the thin cover. A connection subtle but deliberate. His body was warm against mine. Steady, real. And then he moved, just a little, enough to face me. I turned, too, eyes open, faces close. The air between us, thin and hot and trembling. He leaned in, and I didn't stop him. His breath tickled the curve of my lips, warm and slow, like he wanted me to meet him halfway. Our noses brushed, mouths just a breath apart. The kiss hovered like a held breath, dangerous and tender, unspoken and electric. And then a knock, sharp, 2 raps, loud against the hush. We froze. Room service. The moment shattered like glass dropped from a height. He exhaled first, eyes dark with something unspoken. But even as we sat up, he didn't pull his hand away. It rested on my thigh like an apology, or a promise. We didn't talk as the tray was wheeled in. 2 covered dishes, sweating with steam. The staff left quickly, the door clicking shut behind them. Back on the bed, we ate side by side, close enough that our legs touched under the covers. His knee brushed mine once, then again. Neither of us moved away. The silence had changed, no longer heavy with hesitation. Now it was charged, alive. I didn't want him to speak. Not yet. Words would have ruined what had taken so long to build. So we ate in that quiet space between almost and not yet, where hearts race and skin remembers. And all the while his hands stayed close. We didn't rush the morning. There was no alarm, no urgency, just a hush of waves in the distance, and the rhythm of his breathing against my back. His arm tightened around me, sleep-warm and possessive. I didn't move. I didn't want to. We lay like that for what felt like hours, the lines between strangers and something more quietly blurring under the sheets. He whispered my name once, softly, as if tasting it, like it belonged on his tongue. I turned in his arms. There was a smile in his eyes, but something else too, a tenderness that made my throat ache. "I'm going to miss this," I said, voice barely louder than the ocean. This, he asked, this version of us. No labels. No timelines. Just now. His fingers found mine beneath the covers. What if we don't leave it here? I blinked. You mean... if I booked the room for one more night, his lips brushed my temple, then hovered near my cheek. Would you stay? The answer bloomed to me before I could stop it. Yes. Because what we'd shared wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a fluke. It was the quietest kind of falling, without promises, without pressure, just presence. And when I finally pulled away to dress, I noticed something on the nightstand. A note, scribbled on hotel stationery, in his handwriting. It's not the bed I'll miss. It's the way you made it feel like home. I pressed the paper to my chest, smiled. Later, we walked through the resort together, not side by side like tourists, but close. Brushed fingers, glances that lingered. People may have seen two guests leaving a room, but I knew better. We didn't just share a room. We shared a beginning. If this story stirred something in you, hit like, subscribe for more forbidden pairings and soft burn intensity. Now tell me, ever shared a bed that didn't stay innocent?